Hey guys, Mrhappy here, and today I'm going to do a video regarding the lore behind the Binding Coil of Bahamut. Now keep in mind this video is going to contain major spoilers, so if you are someone who is closely paying attention to the story in A Realm Reborn, I recommend you turn off the video now. Now we are going to discuss what actually happens in the Binding Coil, and then we're going to go over some questions that it sort of raises, and I'm going to give a few theories that I have about what might happen. Keep in mind all of this is both it's all speculation. On top of being spoilers, it's all speculation. We don't know what is going on quite yet, but there are plenty of theories that people are coming up with, and I wanted to participate in this. So, to get everyone up to date, let's go over the story that's going on in the Binding Coil of Bahamut. The story of the Binding Coil starts with a man named Uranger. He's a former student of Louis Soir and a member of his Circle of Knowing, but now he is a prominent member of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, a group of heroes tasked with the protection of Eorzea in A Realm Reborn. You learn most of that during the main story in A Realm Reborn. Uranger is responsible for dealing with the primal threat, or at least obtaining a certain degree of knowledge regarding the primals themselves. He's mostly just a man of many words, so he actually warns the adventure of the return of Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan in their stronger forms, and that it was caused by the defeat of Ultimate Weapon. He bids the player deal with them as soon as possible. He also provides a quest regarding the primal Odin as you search to discover his background, but we'll talk about Odin a bit more in a future update. After dealing with the Beastmen tribes and their primals, Uranger is heavily disturbed by an unidentified primal out in La Noscea. He relays the message to you that Alphanod's sister, Alisaie, is waiting for you at Wineport in eastern La Noscea with a request for assistance. Once arriving, Alisaie reveals to you that an Imperial base, Cashram Occidens, is sheltering the entrance to a cavern that was formed after the Calamity, and that it has never been explored before. She requests that you find this entrance within the base and report back to her immediately. Upon finding it, you return to Wineport and report to Jabroka, who is in service of Alisaie, only working under the Maelstrom out of convenience. With a great wealth of knowledge hidden within the caverns ahead, you alert Jabroka that you are ready to adventure in with Alisaie to discover what secrets it holds. I don't know why I had such a hard time with that one. Upon entering, you find a great wealth of aether, Eorzea's life stream, in case you're wondering, emanating from the massive crystals surrounding you. They're all corrupted crystals. Their level of corruptions is so high that it empowers many of the creatures within the Binding Coil, granting them strength not known to creatures outside of its reach. These are not the only crystals across Eorzea, though. In the wake of the Calamity, several areas were infested with these crystals when the Calamity occurred, caused specifically by Bahamut's arrival and Louis Soir's attempt at containing him. These crystals can be primarily seen forming around the swords that contain Bahamut within Dalamud, as large amounts of aether were required for their removal. However, Bahamut's freedom did not mean the end of the Allagan's efforts to contain him. You are confronted with their defense system, their last attempt at preventing mortals from obtaining the knowledge that lies deep within the Binding Coil. However, knowing you must obtain this knowledge for the sake of the Scions, you press forward, defeating the defense systems that lay before you. Upon breaching the defenses, you are struck with an awe-inspiring sight, the sight of a crystal-covered wing of Bahamut. 5 years ago, during the Calamity, Bahamut sought to annihilate the inhabitants of Eorzea as punishment for his imprisonment, but he mysteriously vanished as he prepared for his final attack. Now remember, Bahamut is a primal. All primals require extremely large amount of aether in order to maintain their physical form, something that Bahamut is gathering to use to escape Dalamud. Up until this point of the story, it was assumed that Bahamut's aether had run out and that he had disappeared as a result. Somehow, though, he stands before the player, showing that he had retained his physical form all along. How is this even possible? What could they possibly be doing in order to keep him with his physical form? In order to find out, you press on, but you are also being watched by a familiar face. You defeat several beasts empowered by the nearby aether, including the deadly beast Caduceus. With his defeat, a machine activates, allowing for progress to be made onward past the cavern entrance. Now, Caduceus seemed to have precise control over the technology with which he inhabited, so it seems he may not just be some common creature empowered by the aether, but actually a creature that served the Allagans in defending the secrets of the Binding Coil, or just defending the secrets of their technology altogether. Without much more than a hunch, you press on to an area that seems almost eerie. It's a gateway that stands between an elevator leading down into the depths of the coil and an exit to the open world. You take rest here before carrying on to the next challenges that await you. As you take the elevator down, you're greeted by more of the Allagan's defense systems, similarly to the device that you had previously encountered. This defense system is much smarter than the previous one, however. It possesses several nodes, each tied to each other. Engaging the first one in battle triggers a defense system to monitor you while you progress through and attempt to deal with the entire defense system. For each node defeated, the system enhances all of the remaining nodes in an attempt to stop your progress while it charges up. Should it be given time to power up to full, it will destroy all of the intruders. Additionally, should any of the defenses be bypassed without defeat, the defense system will absorb all of its remaining defenses in an attempt to stop the player. How did the Allag, a race of beings from several eras ago, possibly possess the knowledge to make technology this intelligent? It's not so much that the technology is intelligent, but this is such a highly advanced defense system that you just simply don't see in any other part of the game. The closest thing you'll get is really the Imperials, and they have Magitech, and they've been using Magitech for a very, very long time. So it's no surprise that they are capable of similar feats, but not so intelligent that it works exactly like this. Usually, it just sets off alarms and they use the technology to defend it. This is actually a fully self-aware defense system. And it's so intelligent that it just blows away any Garlean tech by a wide margin. So furthermore, how did the Allag even set up these defenses in the Binding Coil? It's stated prior that these things were built into each of the swords of Dalamud, and that each one of them actually had their own defense system. But the fact that they're so very carefully placed in the Binding Coil almost leads you to believe that even though the Allag were killed several eras ago, that they still had something to do with this. Not just the sword, not just defending the sword itself, but actually defending the Binding Coil and trying to prevent people from progressing downward. It's just too carefully constructed to believe that this was set in place just for Dalamud and that it hasn't been modified in any such way. There's a few other theories I have on that, but let's move on first. So it seems that it's all orchestrated, but with even more questions and less answers, we press on to the next turn, turn 3, which is where you enter the Ragnarok. Now, what's most interesting about the next part of the coil is that the Ragnarok is without a doubt an Allagan ship. I mean, it has an engine room. I'm assuming it has a helm somewhere. But what is the engine room even powering? Because the engine room is active and it's alive and it's working, which is just hard to believe that even if it was part of the sword, which it's not, by the way, it's a completely different thing separate from the sword itself, somehow that it's still being powered after crashing into the earth 5 years prior and having nobody really looking over it. So for what purpose it serves, we really don't know, but progressing down the engine room is the only way to get past that, pretty much. So you move downward, you defeat a bunch of enemies that were tasked with defending the deeper layers, and after quickly dispatching them, you are greeted by a drive cylinder within the Ragnarok, functioning as an elevator. Now, what's interesting to note is that in real life, the closest thing we have to a drive cylinder, I believe, is a division of data within a disk drive. So this elevator systems are likely storing and defending extremely large amounts of data. So more interestingly is that upon unauthorized activation, the drive cylinder actually possesses a defense system programmed into it. The defense system consists of several Allag mechanical units, including bugs, warriors, and dreadnoughts. As the defense system powers up, it drops more and more units to deal with the intruders, and the defense system's power is directly linked to its defensive units. Should the defensive units survive long enough, the amount of power the cylinder must give off to keep them alive will become too great, and it will begin to go into overdrive. The technology dispels the overload of energy in a pulse that, while not harmful to the other defensive systems, can be deadly to anyone else caught in its path. However, the characters quickly deal with these very odd defenses, and the elevator reaches a standstill. At this point, it connects to several other devices that will act as a further elevator, I guess you could say, but this part of the Allag technology is a little bit different. Whereas the elevator had been traveling along a rail the whole time, it's now locked into place with the sides of that rail, and those act as sort of a hover device, and those are going to be used to get into the last turn. So take one final rest before going down into the last part of the Binding Coil for the time being, and that is turn 5 as we know it. So what's interesting about this is up to this point, we've pretty much gotten no cutscenes. After turn 1, we got almost no cutscenes going into turn 4. In fact, we didn't get a single cutscene in turn 2, 3, or 4. So at this point, we've literally just been going down and doing nothing else. So there's been pretty much no story involvement, but within the final turn, we find creatures and technology that gives us, well, more questions, unfortunately. For one, the elevator stops on what appears to be a giant hand. LSA recognized that pretty quickly, and I think the player recognizes it even quicker, and identifies that it's most likely Bahamut's hand. In fact, it is Bahamut's hand. Thankfully, it's immobile, as the wing was earlier, but you can't help but ponder on how it's still retaining its physical form. Bahamut's clearly using up massive amounts of aether, yet the realm's aether flow has been restored after the calamity. So that means that while Bahamut is absorbing aether from the world, there's also still more aether than there ever was flowing through the world, which is how the realm itself was reborn in the first place. I mean, there's a few explanations you could use from this. One is that Bahamut's aether is indeed fueling the planet, although the healing process is so slow that he is unable to move during this. That's an extremely, extremely unlikely one. Another one is he is actually merged with the realm, and while it's keeping him in his physical form, it's also recycling aether back into the world. So it's recycling aether through Bahamut is another theory. Both of these are extremely unlikely since Bahamut seems to be attempting to return. It could be the realm is trying to hold him back, that Hydaelyn and some other forces at work are trying to hold him down there, and his aether is slowly giving off into the world. There's a lot of different theories you can go with here, but for now you move forward, you take a few steps, and you are stopped by a flock of dragons. So 3 of them appear to be following a much larger dragon, who is likely their mother. However, look closely at the names. Scourge of Mrhappy. Now, most wouldn't know because they don't really talk about it too much, but Mrhappy is actually a continent to the south of Eorzea. It's not even on the map yet, so we can expect to go there sometime in the future, but it's believed to be very tribal in nature. They believe heavily in voodoo and magic and things like that. And as a scourge is simply something that causes great distress, it is likely these dragons were once inhabitants of the distant continent, but were captured and trapped by the Allag several eras ago, making them, well, thousands of years old, apparently. The Allag show the technology with the ability to control serpents and dragons and create self-aware artificial intelligence, so their ability to control these dragons is no doubt an important factor. You dispatch of the device controlling the dragon's true power before dispatching of the dragon itself. You enter the deepest chamber of the Ragnarok, and Alcé begins to manipulate the devices within. She believes the device may be used to control the saturation of aether within the caverns before using her Archon-like powers to turn the device on. She ponders on the idea that the device is used to control the dragons, as the city-states of Ishgard to the north does constant battle with the dragon menace. So, both the Ishgards and the Garlands could both use this technology heavily, because dragons are extremely, extremely powerful. So, Ishgard likely has nothing to do with this, but the Garlands are likely trying to obtain this knowledge in an attempt to use it to attack Eorzea. But with Gaius gone, what are they still doing with all that? Are they still, pressing forward, trying to defeat everybody with Gaius gone? Is Gaius really gone? We know a few things. We know Nero Tolskeva is not dead. We'll probably be seeing him in the very near future. In fact, I have a theory about when we'll see Nero Tolskeva. So, who knows how he's going to unfold, but he's definitely going to be a major, major component when it comes to the future of the Binding Coil and the future of the story for Final Fantasy XIV as a whole. Now, the Garlands themselves even face terrible trouble with the dragons, so it's no doubt that the dragons are really a much greater threat to Eorzea than people think they are. Upon activating the Allagan device, the player is struck with an amazing, yet fearful, sight. Bahamut's head. Several lasers are prodding the inanimate head, while a powerful crystal seeps from his neck down into a piece of crystal-like rock behind him. It pulsates, though. It's very brightish colored, and it pulsates. It's like a heart, and Alcé makes note of that it's almost like it's what's keeping Bahamut alive. But Bahamut's at this point in pieces, or at least it looks like he is. His neck has been severed from his body, and there's just this giant pulsating heart that's just sitting there. So what is all this stuff that's keeping him alive? What are these lasers doing? What is the point of it all? Pretty much there's nothing that you can do about this, or even that you know about this at this point. So Alcé says, we should probably get out of here and collect our thoughts about this information. So just as you're preparing the exit, however, Alcé sees one figure. Actually, I have here that Alcé sees 2 figures, but Alcé doesn't actually notice one of these figures. So the 2 figures that are there are Louis Sois, who Alcé notices and yells out, "Hey, grandfather," and none other than the White Raven, Nael van Darnus, the man who single-handedly brought Dalamud crashing down into Eorzea himself 5 years ago. Thought to have been killed and absorbed by Bahamut, it is no doubt a shock to see him here, but it's equally shocking to see Louis Sois here as well. Everyone's thought Louis Sois gave his life to, well, defend Bahamut. So, or not defend Bahamut, but to defeat Bahamut and defend the realm, I should say, really. he whispers something, but they don't let you hear what it is. He whispers something to Alice, and she doesn't hear what it is either before moving forward to meet with Nail Van Darnus, who seemed to have been expecting this all along. He's constantly looking back at the party, looking back at you and Alice, and he's looking back at Louisoix, but as Louisoix attempts to move forward to him, he just stands there waiting. You know, he doesn't seem to be, coming up with, he doesn't seem to be evil, almost. He almost seems to be an ally, just based on his demeanor alongside Louisoix, which is very, very awkward to see that Nail Van Darnus may actually be sane, but the fact that he's alive is way more surprising. So Alice cries out to her grandfather, their cries are not heard, and he disappears off with the White Raven. With no other options, you retreat out to a nearby teleporter. Now, oddly enough, upon exiting the Binding Coil, you find yourself in northern Thanolin. Now, you're right outside Castrum Meridianum alongside a corrupted crystal. Now, Alice seems thrilled to know her grandfather is alive, but in what sense is he really alive? He hardly seems alive in the real sense of the word. So, and even if he is really alive, what is he doing down there in the Caverns of Eorzea? Why has he kept his existence such a secret for the past 5 years? And so pretty much you have no answers, just more and more questions, more and more questions. I have a few theories, and we'll go over them just as soon as we are almost done here. So there's a lot to take in. So you return to Uranger, who bids you to tell him of your adventures in the coil, and Alice and the player tell him that Bahamut is still very much alive, as is Louisoix, who seems to be keeping Bahamut contained beneath the realm. Uranger and Alice seem to be convinced that Bahamut is simply within a deep slumber. He's slowly drinking up the aether of the realm until he can once again use it to finish what he started. With this threat imminent, Alice bids you help her investigate the other 2 fragments of Dalamud that fell to Earth. Now, I can tell you there are way more than 2 fragments, but there's a few other fragments that we know about. I mean, Pharaoh Sirius actually has a fragment going right through it, and it's actually why it's been so corrupted with aether as of late, and why the Siren is taking such respite. She lives there now. Yeah, the Siren lives there now. There's also the one out in Eastern Thanolin. There's one there. I know those aren't the only 2. The Crystal Tower is technically, I believe the Crystal Tower is just a giant spike of Dalamud that's sitting in the ground. So there's actually a lot of things going on there, but I'm wondering where this is actually going to lead in the end. I mean, there's a lot to take in. So what does it all mean? What does it all mean? Why is Nail Van Darnus working alongside Louisoix? Or is he even working alongside Louisoix? Is he just there? Like, sort of, are they just 2 entities that are there, and they're not really so much doing anything to defend the realm? Perhaps he's still evil. Perhaps he's still working under the influence of Dalamud. Even though he's dead, the aether being given off by Dalamud is no doubt giving him a physical form. He was absorbed by Bahamut, so it's very much concerning that the White Raven is still alive. Now, and even if he is, can he really be trusted? I mean, if you look on Square Enix's site, if you look at threats of Eorzea, Nail Van Darnus is still listed there as a threat. So it's still likely to believe that you will have to fight him at some point, and I've been speculating that for a very long time. If you watch my streams, people ask me about the White Raven, if we'll be seeing him in the future. Even before beating turn 5 of the Binding Coil, I was saying, yeah, we'll definitely be fighting Nail Van Darnus again. But we may actually not be fighting him. He may actually be helping us, but we'll see. I still think we're going to have to fight Nail Van Darnus again. I very much think he is going to make a return, and I think he's going to make a return in patch 2.2, if I could be honest. I think we're going to have to fight him in 2.2, but we will see. So, what else? Is Bahamut actually attempting to return, or are the Ascians just trying to force him to return? This no doubt has to do something with the Ascians, because they want Bahamut's destruction. They want the destruction of Bahamut to bring forth Zodiark. They want to use that destruction as a means to bring Zodiark back into the world. And more importantly, what further threat does the Empire even hold for Eorzea? Now, without the 14th Legion, Gaius was obsessed with taking over Eorzea. The rest of the Empire really didn't care all that much. The Garlean Emperor himself is getting so old that he doesn't really get to make major decisions. He definitely likes taking over lands, but he didn't seem too interested in Eorzea to begin with. Gaius, on the other hand, was obsessed with it. And Nero Tolskeva is still alive, so he's clearly going to play a role. He's clearly doing something in the background that's going to be a big deal when it comes to Eorzea. I think he may have actually even rebuilt Ultima Weapon. The only reason why I believe that, he got away and we're going to be fighting a powered-up version of Ultima Weapon very, very soon. you don't just fight a powered up Ultima weapon, and Nirotolskeva got away. So he is going to be playing a very important role later. I'm just very curious to see what it is. He may end up even playing an anti-hero in the future, where he does end up helping us, although not necessarily on purpose, just because we have aligning goals pretty much. So, and most importantly, what other fragments of secrets could be hidden on the other fragments of Dalamud? I mean, pretty much with you entering in La Noscea and exiting in Northern Thanalan, it goes to show you that these caverns run all below. They run all below Eorzea. So there's no doubt in my mind that you are eventually going to be going in through one of the other entrances. Probably the entrance in Eastern Thanalan will probably be going in through there sometime in the very future. And then maybe Pharaoh Sirius, maybe under Pharaoh Sirius will go. I very much doubt it. I think the third fragment is actually the Crystal Tower. I don't know where the other entrances could be or where you're actually going to enter, but there are definitely other entrances into the Binding Coil that they can introduce to us at any time. I'm sure I'm just forgetting one of the other fragments of Dalamud. I'm sure there's another one. I just can't remember it right off the top of my head. It's almost certain that one of these pieces is the Crystal Tower, though. I mean, it looks like a giant fragment of Dalamud. It's clearly a giant piece of Allagan technology. So, I'm just wondering. It just looks like it's surrounded by aether, but it looks like it's uncorrupted aether, which is the very, very interesting part about it. But what are the other fragments? I mean, what could it really have in it that wasn't in the other one? What new secrets did you even learn in the other fragments? I mean, well, eventually you're going to have to run into Louis Soir and the White Raven again. So there's very, very little out there in terms of reliable information. The whole point of the Binding Coil 1 through 5 was to give you a bunch of cliffhangers. Why is this happening? Why is this person here? What's going on here? It literally gave you almost no answers, other than that Louis Soir is likely alive, in some sense of the word. But that so is the White Raven. It's very interesting that Alice didn't even notice that Nail Van Darnus was standing there. So, could just be that she saw Louis Soir, she's like, oh man. But it's almost more likely that he wasn't visible to her, and that he was only visible to us, because we saw Louis Soir, we saw the White Raven, but it seemed like she did not. So, without a doubt, patch 2.1 will usher in some new story elements for us to explore in Eorzea. Now, it's been confirmed that Bahamut himself has awoken, and that now the Scions are very aware of this reality. Now, the patch named for 2.1 is indeed A Realm Awoken, hinting towards a greater step in the return of Bahamut. With aether pouring out of the world, there's no doubt a great deal of chaos is bound to happen, so much so that we begin keeping the Beastmen tribes in check, which would bring forth the daily Beastmen quest that we're going to be getting. So much so that the boundless flow of aether is empowering the primals to new heights, hence giving us the extreme mode primals, which is making the realm even more unstable. So I very much look forward to absorbing all these elements and bringing you guys another lore video in patch 2.1. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share for more Final Fantasy videos. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. You can watch me stream and get regular updates about what I'm doing, about the videos that I'm releasing on my channel. You can get the first updates right there. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.